Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to another edition of the Bayou Bets here on bet.NOLA.com, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. I'm Zach Ewing, along with Devin Jackson, Jim Derry, and Spencer the Guru Urquhart. We got a full house for you on Super Monday, which is also Valentine's Day. So roses are red, violets are blue. We made money on the Super Bowl, and we hope you did too. That's our message for you today. Do you like that, Jim?
Sure.
We're talking about the guy who changed the NFL Network during the halftime show yesterday. So
I don't watch halftime shows. It's a bunch of fluff.
Let me hear
about football so I can decide if I want to make a live bet. And let's go forward. But I was rolling so well. I kind of kicked myself in the third quarter there when could have got the Rams to pile on the Rams money line at plus 130. Kind of kicking myself, but I didn't want to be greedy, so I laid off of it.
And it was a weird game. I mean, we'll talk plenty about the Super Bowl as we go on, but it was a lot of things could have gone either way depending on what happened there. I mean, if the Bengals get 10 more yards, they probably try a field goal. The game goes to overtime. They could win. It goes over. Like a lot of things would have changed around. A lot of props would have changed around at that point. And so for as much as the game went, Jim, the way you and I thought it would, it was pretty close to going the other direction had the Bengals gotten 10, 15 more yards there at the end.
It was apropos and karmatic, if that's a word. Well, it is today because I won about 6 props because they went for it on fourth down, which they had to go for on fourth down. But it's just kind of poetic that I win like 6 props. Had they gotten that first down, I would have lost. It would have been probably about a $400 swing for me, maybe more, because I would have lost all my Bengals getting more yards, Bengals getting more first downs. Rams getting more for Rams this, Rams that, Rams blah, blah, blah. It would have changed the under, like you're talking about. It would have changed that. Could have changed my huge Rams money line bet. Could have changed a lot of things, but it was just apropos that I won it, all those things, on a fourth down miss.
Well, and again, we'll talk more about this too, and I want these other guys to chime in. But Aaron Donald also should have been the MVP. He won that game for the Rams.
Without question.
We'll get into that. But we hope you were able to bet on the game. And if you weren't, you can still sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app so that the next time we are all sitting around a game like at March Madness, you can get in on the action. If you bet $20, you get a $300 bonus with our promo code NOLA300. And the easiest way to get that is just to simply go to NOLA.com/Caesars. That will load the promo code for you, take you to the sign-up screen, put in your information. It's very, very easy to do, and I know a lot of people around the state were taking advantage of it yesterday. So let's talk about the game just a little bit. Devin, bring you in here, and I know you won some props, and we need to talk about that too. But what were your impressions of the Super Bowl?
I think it went about what we kind of discussed. We knew that the Bengals are going to keep it close, especially with that 4.5, point spread. But opportunities on both sides of the game, in my opinion, to blow open the game. Both teams had an opportunity to run away with this one. The Bengals had all the momentum in the third quarter. Obviously they get the touchdown that is going to be highly debated because should have been offensive pass interference. Maybe so, maybe not. But then on the next drive, Rams throw an interception, and the Bengals have a chance to really put the nail in the coffin and take control of the game. But gotta give credit to the Rams. They were able to stop, when they needed to make stops in the game. And even for the Rams early on, they had a 14-3 lead. They could have pushed it more. Obviously, Odell going out of the game played a big part, but I think, both teams had opportunities to win. I think they both played exactly how they should have to win the game. The Bengals really started running the ball really well in the third and fourth quarter. And like I mentioned, I was surprised down the stretch of the game they didn't go back to Joe Mixon because he was moving the ball, helping them move the ball. I understand P. Ryan is the receiving back, but a lot of decisions on both sides I think will be looked back and questioned. But at the end of the day, the Rams made the plays when they needed to.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll disagree with on there is I never really saw an opportunity for the Bengals to run away with this game. I just don't think that was ever going to happen because they weren't able to move the ball consistently enough. And so, if anything, the Bengals caught the majority of the breaks in that game between the dropped snap on the extra point, between the missed pass interference call, between the OBJ going out, and I mean they easily could have won the game with those breaks, and there were a couple of questionable calls on the game-winning drive by the Rams as well. But I just don't, the Bengals could have won the game. I don't see a scenario in which it was going to be a blowout unless it just started going crazy with turnovers or something. But I think the one of us who picked the Bengals against the spread was Spencer. Spencer, this game didn't exactly go the way you were saying. You saw more of a shootout. But Burrow and the Bengals did give it the old college try.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, I was impressed by the effort, and early on it looked like he was staying upright, but just down the stretch the O-line really got exposed. It was tough to watch, especially there down the stretch there with Donald just destroying him and Von Miller. It just goes to show that they really need to beef up that O-line because that was really their only weakness. I mean, but it was such a glaring weakness that it ultimately cost them. Because I mean, he can have Chase, Higgins, all the fancy weapons, but if he can't protect Burrow, it's going to be tough. And it was a magical run for them. They damn near pulled it off. It was really close there. It was fun, but that just proved to be the difference. Though, if you can't protect Burrow, it's going to be an uphill battle. They've got to address that, or else there's no way to get back to the Super Bowl next year.
It really was a magical run. I think that's the right way to put it. It's and it almost went all the way to the end. It was like against all odds, somehow the Bengals are winning this game, even though they're getting destroyed in line of scrimmage, and they just about pulled it off. And finally, really, I mean, Aaron Donald took matters into his own hands on that last drive, and Cooper Kupp to an extent too. So let's look at some prop bet winners. Cooper Kupp was the MVP. It was 6-1. A lot of places it was actually 7-1 at Caesars. That paid off nicely for those who went away from a quarterback. Again, I mean, I'm of the opinion that Donald should have won it. I think, unfortunately, and I'm a little biased. I took Donald at 40-1 live at the end of the third quarter to win the MVP. I think a lot of votes were probably cast before he made those two plays at the end of the game to seal the deal. I think that's one big problem with betting Aaron Donald is, are the voters going to see it the way that they should see it? Or are they going to see the shiny numbers, Cooper Kupp 2 touchdown catches, including the game winner, and just go that way? And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. And I'm sure after that moment, whenever they took the lead there, a lot of the voters probably like, oh, boy, it's got to be Kupp. They probably just cast their vote at that point for him. And a fun fact about Kupp, he actually went under on his yardage prop. That was pretty wild that he had the big game that still went under on that.
That just shows you how inflated that number was. Jim, I know the sharp money here was on heads, but that hit on the coin toss.
I took Bengals winning the coin toss instead of that. And the reason why is because prior to this game, 7 straight losers. Whoever won the toss lost the game 7 times in a row. And I figured, why buck a trend? I think the Bengals are going to lose, so I picked the Bengals to win the toss. Ching!
Hard-hitting analysis there, but
Ching!
It worked. It worked. Speaking of having it working, Devin Jackson hit some monster props throughout the game, including OBJ as the first scorer. What was your strategy going in, Devin?
I looked at some of the long shot odds. That was the first thing I did, and I thought about which ones could be the most realistic. And although it didn't happen exactly the way I thought it would, I did think, Odell Beckham scoring first seemed very likely in the Super Bowl, just based on the matchups, who would be on him. And, the Rams got a good matchup and he scored the first one. So I was a little surprised the odds were still high because when I did, it was plus 1,200. So, which is why I won pretty big on that. But that was a little bit surprising considering that, he essentially became the second option for Matthew Stafford in the playoffs. And, it just seemed to make sense just based on what the Bengals had defensively and just what was going on, especially early on in the game.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that one paid off well. A lot of the yardage props were unders. One of the ones that went over was Jamar Chase receiving. He got that long catch on the final drive that put him over. But outside of, I think, T. Higgins was obviously an over. but the running backs and quarterbacks were under on just about everything. You see Stafford there was just barely under his yardage prop. Burrow under 1.5 touchdowns. Jim, you and I had talked about Burrow to throw no touchdowns was a good value at plus 850, and that was very close to hitting. I mean, we talk about the penalty. If the referees call that penalty on T. Higgins, and again, maybe the game goes differently then and Burrow ends up throwing more, but you at least have a chance to hit that plus 850 at that point.
Oh, yeah, it was certainly worth the 8.5 to 1 because I really love the under 1.5. So I made a point of that. There were so many, to me, easy prop bets to be made. I mean, anything looks easy when you win it. But the ones that stick out to me are the sacks. I mean, that to me was like, they were like giving money away. I mean, on the sacks, the over 5 sacks, and I know you were like a little worried there early on, but there was no doubt in my mind the Rams were going to wear this offensive line down. And the under 22 for the Bengals was a little scary when they did score right off the bat to start the second half. But I just saw it. You could see it kind of trending that way. At no point in this game, and I know it sounds easy to say, and I know people are going to shrug their shoulders, but I'm not kidding. At no point in this game did I feel like the Bengals were going to win this game. I'm not saying at no point did I feel like they couldn't win the game, but there was no point in the game where I felt like the Bengals were going to win. And so I felt good about my prop bets. I felt good about the sacks. I felt good about longest quarterback rushes, not going to be longer than 9.5. There was one point where Burrow did kind of run and he slid, and if he didn't slide, he probably could have got another 5 yards if he wanted to take the chance, but probably better of him not to take the chance. But they're just not going to take a lot of chances running their quarterbacks in Super Bowl. So those numbers are inflated. He had only done it over 11.5, I think 3 or 4 times all year long. So there were a lot of, seemed to me, easy prop bets, and it kind of proved out that way. But you're right, the Burrow no touchdown passes, who knows what happens if they don't grab that face mask there. Does he get one? Maybe. But he doesn't get it there for sure.
Yeah, and one of the big ones to hit, maybe the biggest one to hit is a non-quarterback to throw a touchdown pass. That was Joe Mixon throwing the touchdown pass to T. Higgins. That was 15 to 1. For that to happen, I really like Rams more yards. I know that was juiced up a little bit, and they only got it by 8 yards. That was another one that could have flipped there at the end. Yeah. But they did manage. But again, I hate to keep harping on the point because I know there were some questionable calls in both directions. Bengals had 305 yards. 75 yards of them came on T. Higgins' catch. 75 of the 3.
What is? I mean, obviously the face mask thing was questionable, probably more than questionable. But what was questionable at the end of the game? I don't think there was a single call, a single flag that was thrown at the end of the game that was questionable. I mean, the main one you talk about is no way. I mean, he had him wrapped around. He had his hand wrapped around him, and you could see not only did he have his hand wrapped around him, but he also tugged with the right hand. I don't think that. I mean, sometimes we just talk about stuff. Now I'm not talking about us per se. I'm talking about in general the NFL networks and the ESPNs of the world. We talk about things that, to me, and when I saw it, and then I saw it on replay, that's holding. I mean, it was clearly holding, and none of the other ones were even kind of close.
I will say this: I actually thought the play before that, which was the second and goal play, Darrell Henderson was badly held, and they didn't call it. And then it was the third down play. I thought Kupp was, that was very questionable to me. Was the play before that is where I was screaming at the TV, he's holding him. And then I thought they got bailed out a little bit on third down. I mean, I guess it all comes out in the wash, but clearly the call that could have changed the game, and from a betting perspective was that T. Higgins. I mean, if it's not a face mask, it's certainly offensive pass interference. I mean, it was just blatantly obvious. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but anyway,
on the first one, I will say too, Zach. The only thing that is questionable about it, and the only thing that's controversial, is the fact that they had let him play so much throughout the game. So that part I can understand. But when you look at that play and throw out how they've been calling it, and I'm all about consistency. I mean, I agree with, if you're going to call it one way, call it that way. But that is classic holding, and you could have called. I mean.
I mean, I think what Nick is saying here is correct also. Is like, if that was a hold, there was about 8 more holds during the game that they didn't call. And so that's why, to me, it's soft. I'm not saying it's the wrong call. I will say it was a questionable call. So anyway, that's the way things went. Leave us in the comments how you did on your Super Bowl bets. And we do want to move forward and talk a little bit about this. Guys, and Spencer, I'm gonna send this to you because I think you may have a different opinion on it than me. I don't look at either one of these teams, and we'll look at futures bets for next year here in a minute. I didn't look at either one of these teams as really a great team. And I know the Rams win the Super Bowl. They got a lot of talent on paper. I think they got by the skin of their teeth quite a bit. The Bengals, I think, were on a magic carpet ride that finally crashed. I don't think they were that much better than above average throughout the course of the year. I know that's not going to be a popular take. It just did not strike me as a classic Super Bowl. But what was your opinion on these teams ultimately?
For sure. Yeah, it was a fun matchup because it was two teams that kind of just had everything come together for them. And the Rams were a team that they went all in. I mean, they put all the chips on the table, acquiring superstars like Von Miller, Odell Beckham. And so in the AFC, though, I'd say the Bills were probably the best team. I mean, they got robbed against the Chiefs with the whole coin toss thing. But, I mean, the Bengals were right there with the Rams. And while I can't say they were the best team, they made a good show of it. And the Rams, I mean, the NFC was kind of a crapshoot this year. There wasn't really a clear-cut best team. I mean, Green Bay, I guess, was, but, I mean, they weren't. I think they were a little fool's gold because of their division. Their division being so soft there. The NFC North was down this year. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, the Rams, I think, they weren't dominant per se, but they were a worthy champion, in my opinion.
What do you guys think, Devin or Jim? I mean, I you know, it's easy to just look at seeds. The Rams were very close to being the 2 seed. Instead, they were the 4. But I just don't look at this when you're talking great teams. This was more a playoffs of survival and attrition.
Yeah, I would agree. To me, I was thinking during the game, like, you know, thinking back across the NFL, like, you know, I don't think this was the best 2 teams in the NFL matching up per se. But I mean, they had things go their way, and it takes a little bit of luck to get to the Super Bowl. And I do think both teams, you know, had some things go their way down the stretch of the games. I mean, both in the championship games had chances to lose, and they were able to make the plays that they needed to. But to me, I think at least on the AFC sides of things, I think the Bills were still the best team in the AFC, in my opinion. But obviously, things didn't play out the way that they wanted to and needed to, and they couldn't get a defensive stop against the Chiefs. You know, thinking back to that game, but you know, coming away from the game, I think the Bills were probably the best team, probably in the NFL, the way they were playing at that point. But like you said, you know, sometimes it doesn't always end up being the best 2 teams. But you know, we discussed the Rams as being a Super Bowl favorite before the season, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So I think, you know, they did what they needed to do. It wasn't always pretty, but you know, that's just kind of how I feel about things.
Rams, quite a few free agents after the year, including OBJ, who found out today has a torn ACL and probably will not be ready for at least the start of next season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. And that's a good segue to go into some futures. Here's your odds for next year's Super Bowl. And you mentioned the Bills, Devin, the Chiefs also up there. Obviously, the Rams are 3rd choice at 10-1. I will say I think the Bengals at 14-1 is complete fool's gold. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because, again, you're counting on them getting a lot better on the offensive line. I think it's more likely they miss the playoffs than it is they make the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, a lot of times the Super Bowl runner-up has a tough year the next year. Look at the 49ers from a couple of years ago, and then there's been numerous examples of that. So, yeah, the Bengals and that division's tough, you know, with the Ravens, the Steelers. The Browns might be better. I mean, yeah, that's there's going to be an uphill climb for them next year, no doubt.
Jim, you were very successful on futures last year. What do you see from and listen, the caveat here is that we don't know how free agency is going to go. We don't know how the draft's going to go. We don't know a lot here. But when you're just looking at these teams, and we've got another set here as well, where do you see maybe some values early?
I'm not going to put anything down on Super Bowl futures in February. It just simply doesn't make sense. I went into the season, and I usually do this every year. I'll pick 1 or 2 in August that I really like. This year I only picked one in August because there was only one team that I really liked in August, and that was the Rams. I thought the Rams were the best team going into the season. I thought the Rams were the best team at the end of the season. They deserved to win the game. They did. There were a lot of things they didn't do right. Stafford made mistakes. McVay made mistakes. They had some issues. Akers got hurt and missed a major chunk of the season. Their top running back, but overall, I thought the best team won the Super Bowl. Now that being said, I don't think there was any great team this year. And going into next year, you're right. You have to see how things play off. But if you were to force me to take two teams right now that I like and had decent odds and say their price is not going to get any better than they are right now, it would be the New England Patriots at 25-1 and the Dallas Cowboys at 16-1. So those are the two teams. If I had to pick something right now that I don't think their value is getting any better, it's those two, because I think anybody else, I think there's a great chance that you will get a better value on them at some point. But I do want to see how free agency plays out. The Patriots alone, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with them? They've got some chunks to fill as well. So I just don't see anything here. Like, there's some things that I definitely wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And if you go back to the other screen, Devin, real quick, I know you've been flip-flopping back and forth, but Tampa Bay at 8. Tampa Bay at 18-1. Anyone who bets on Tampa Bay right now needs to have their head examined. I mean, who's going to quarterback this team? Who's going to coach them? Because Bruce Arians is an awful football coach, and he was only bailed out because Tom Brady's either the best quarterback of all time or certainly in the top two. So, I mean, and other things on this list, there are lots of things I probably wouldn't touch. I mean, why would you take the Broncos at 22-1? You're assuming they're going to get a top-notch quarterback. That's kind of assuming that they might get an Aaron Rodgers or something like that. I'm just not putting any money on those kinds of teams, and I don't think the Ravens are going to win any Super Bowls with Lamar Jackson, but that's my own opinion. So the Titans, they showed that they flopped away things, and I'm not betting on Ryan Tannehill either. So,
well, the Titans are interesting, and you mentioned, I mean, the biggest single decision we're waiting on is Aaron Rodgers. And the one place I think you could see some value is if you have a pretty good idea of where he's going to go, and I don't know how you could, but if you think he's coming back to the Packers, that price of 15-1 is going down if Aaron Rodgers comes back.
And they still have to find a way to sign Devontae Adams.
Right. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, they're going to have to.
And they're not going to keep all their whole running back group and core. They've got an old offensive line. I don't like the Packers, even if Rodgers stays next year. I just don't. But again, Zach, you talk about value. There's just not a lot of value to bet in February. There's no reason to bet on any of these in February.
No, I agree with that. The Titans is the other one you mentioned at 20-1. Is that a good price with Ryan Tannehill? No. But if Aaron Rodgers goes to Tennessee and he's supposedly building a home outside Nashville, and so there's a chance. Well, I mean, if for some reason you feel strongly he's going to Tennessee, then yeah, they are a value at 20-1. But I don't know how you could feel strongly about that. So I don't know.
Let me ask a question real quick. Lenny Christ is asking, Jim told me to get Rams money line, and I did the opposite and won. How would that be possible? If you took the Rams money line, you lost, because I didn't bet a single.
If you took the Rams money line, you won. But
exactly. So
if you did the opposite of the Rams money line, you did not win.
So he did exactly. So I don't know what he's talking about, because I didn't touch the spread. I said it in my column. I said it on here. I said it in Datitude. I didn't. Oh, okay.
He said the spread. Okay.
No, well, I did not tell you to bet the spread. I said if I had to take the spread, I would take the Rams. But I said, and you can go back and pull up my NFL picks column, and you can go back and listen to what I said on odds and Bayou Bets last week. I didn't like the spread. I didn't touch the spread. I bet all my money on the money line, and I bet money line, and I bet under, Lenny, Cincinnati.
We're glad.
So I don't know what he
money.
was listening to.
We're glad you won money. We won money too, and we're glad that you did. So,
and thanks for correcting me with Karmic, by the way.
You are. Oh yeah, there you go, Karmic. You're watching Bayou Bets here on Bet.NOLA.com. We're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. We're wrapping up the Super Bowl and the NFL season. Obviously, as we look forward to free agency, we talk about those futures. Aaron Rodgers, a huge question. And then possibly related, probably not related question is who will play quarterback for the New Orleans Saints next year. You saw them at 35-1 on that list. They're actually boosted right now at Caesars temporarily to 40-1. Again, I don't know how you make that bet without knowing who the quarterback's going to be. But they are going to bring back a strong defense. We know that. Michael Thomas will probably be back. We don't know about Alvin Kamara's status. The Saints are one of the more unknown teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of question marks surrounding them. If I had to guess, I'm thinking Jameis would come back because I've read that Tampa Bay and him, a reunion between them probably isn't going to happen. And the only other team I could see maybe trying to sign him would be Pittsburgh, but I just don't know. I just think the Saints are going to do all they can to bring him back, considering he's familiar with everybody. Like, they're preaching continuity. They hired Dennis Allen, want to try to keep pieces together. So I think they'll bring Jameis back unless someone would way outbid him, like offer him something that he couldn't refuse.
Can the Saints win a Super Bowl with Jameis, Jim?
No.
Can they with anybody else out on the market? I guess that's the,
I got to be honest. I'm not sure if there is any quarterback on the market right now with Saints fans don't want to hear this, but Alvin Kamara's situation is a way bigger deal than anyone is talking about. And I've talked about this on Datitude. There is a legitimate chance that he doesn't play football next year. I'm talking legitimate. If he gets charged with a felony and is guilty, he's not playing football next year. And at the minimum, if he gets off of this thing and they do what celebrities do and find ways to get out of it, basically, he's still subject to probably a minimum of a 6-game suspension. And 6 games, your first 6 games without Alvin Kamara, we don't know what the schedule is going to look like. If this schedule's front loaded and they start out 2-4 or 1-5, there isn't a quarterback on the planet that's going to be able to bail them out of what they're going to need to be bail them out. So it's nothing against Jameis Winston. I just don't like the Saints next year. I think it's going to be a bad year. And whatever the under is, and I'm guessing it's going to be in the 8.5 range, I'm taking the under. I think the Saints going to have a losing season next year. I may change my mind in a couple months, but if I had to take that right now, I would certainly take the under. They have a lot of issues, and that's not even talking about their salary cap issues that they're going to have to fix and guys that they're going to lose, and they're going to do their best to keep its defense as intact as possible. But they've got so many holes to fill on offense. Quarterback's not the only problem they have.
Yeah, the silver lining I see, though, is that the NFC South is horrible right now. Now that Brady's retired, I don't see Atlanta doing anything special, and Carolina, unless they could swing a trade for a QB, they're not too good. So, it's not that I'm all optimistic about the Saints, but the NFC South's just looking really rough right now. I might be able to sneak a division title, kind of like the way Washington did in 2020.
You want to make an early bet, Zach? I don't know if these odds are up, but bet on the Panthers to win the division next year because
they're not. All that's up is conference and Super Bowl, not division yet. So,
well, I can tell you right now, if McCaffrey's healthy and they do just a couple things on defense, and I don't like Matt Rule at all, so that would be the one thing that would scare me away. But I think the Panthers could have. I agree with Spencer that the division stinks, but that's only 6 of your 17 games. You're talking about less and less importance when they keep adding games to the schedule. So 1/3 of your season basically is just shy of 1/3 is division games. You still got to play everybody else, and the Saints are not going to have an easy schedule next year, no matter how they work it out, including the game that they got to play, the extra home game that they're giving up to go play overseas.
Yeah, look, this is all hypothetical until we know who the quarterback is, right? And what Alvin Kamara's status is. Those are the two things we don't know. They're going to have, if they are going to have a successful season, it's going to have to look a little bit like this year's, where the defense is carrying them through quite a few games, which is not an easy road, as we've seen. They were doing it toward the end of the year, but they went through that 5-game losing streak that ultimately cost them the season, and it was because they could not move the ball when they had to, and they were turning it over and putting their defense in bad spots as well. So we will talk much more about that. March is going to be a big month. Free agency starts, I think it's a month from yesterday. March 13th, I think, is the date that free agency starts. And then Kamara's due back in court March 6th. So we'll have a lot more answers here in about 6 weeks, what the Saints will look like. And we will talk about that throughout the offseason. In the meantime, there are plenty of other sports going on, of course, and we're going to talk about those all year, too. We're here with you. Yeah, we're here with you. Golf, NASCAR starting up,
yeah.
Daytona 500 on Sunday, and, of course, a lot of basketball right now. And we'll start there as we try to recap the weekend. Starting with Thursday, the NBA, the Pelicans' first 2 games with C.J. McCollum, both losses, and the common denominator that lost to the Heat and then to the Spurs, the fourth one on the list, is that Pels have given up a lot of points. Now, it's just 2 games, but we can talk about tonight's game as well. They're playing Toronto at the Smoothie King Center tonight. But the Pelicans got to figure out defensive rotations, substitution problems, things like that with C.J. McCollum. I mean, listen, it's just 2 games, but they're also in a spot where they're going to have they got to start keeping pace if they're going to get into that play-in tournament. Other results here: Suns and Bucks in a rematch of last year's finals went to the Suns decidedly. They thumped Milwaukee. The Blazers came back. The Knicks had like a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter in that game and let the Blazers, without C.J. McCollum, without Damian Lillard, come back and beat them. The Knicks are basically done. Lakers playing maybe a little bit better, but they're basically done too. I put that one up there because the Nets and Lakers, if you bet the under on their win totals at the beginning of the year, you've already cashed, and we're not even at the All-Star game yet. So, speaking of ching, I chinged a couple of those from the Lakers and Nets win totals unders back in the fall. But Devin, what's your take on the Pels with McCollum? Is this a long-term problem or just sort of a feeling out thing in his first 2 games?
I think feeling out, definitely, because, I talked about when he first made the move that Devontae Graham and CJ McCollum won't be able to play well together. And I think the Pelicans are finding that out firsthand. They're both similar volume shooters that, I just think both kind of need a facilitator to do that. And you also want to keep Brandon Ingram involved. So I think they've had some issues trying to figure out like rotations, like when CJ will rest and where they get their offense. And I think, the biggest thing is that when you get a new player like that, everyone wants to get them involved and make sure that they're getting their shots and, they're the ones, kind of feeling comfortable with everything. So I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period for them. But I think, having him play, a handful of games before the All-Star break, and then once they come back and, kind of get now they're familiar with him and what he brings, I think they'll be fine.
Spencer, your take on the Pels right now?
Yeah, I agree with Devin there for the most part. I think they just gotta get the chemistry down, get acclimated, which is something that I took note of. I tried to look at teams that made a lot of moves and didn't want to bet on them too much here these past few games because they just don't know how the chemistry is going to shake out with all these new pieces, and the Pels are one that are kind of off to a rough start with that. And so, yeah, they're going to have to just work it out. And with Devontae Graham, he'll probably have to shift like to the 6-man role. And I'm like that the young point guard with Jose Alvarado, maybe he'll start seeing more minutes if he can work well with CJ. I know CJ is more of a 2 guard. And yeah, the biggest thing that BI is going to him and CJ are going to have to coexist better together. Hopefully they will, because if they can't be on the floor together, then the whole thing's a lost cause at that point. But I think they'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to happen pretty quick. They got 3 games left before the All-Star break. Tomorrow is Memphis. Thursday is Dallas. And then tonight against Toronto. The Raptors, 3.5-point favorites. Jim, you mentioned earlier you actually like the Pels in this spot, though.
I do. I did a little money line parlay. The Pelicans are in. I think I like the under more than I like the Pelicans themselves, though, because you're talking about 2 teams, and I know that the Pels haven't played great defenses of late, but let's don't overreact to C.J. McCollum playing 2 games here in New Orleans and things not going right. I mean, we tend to do that all over the place in every sport. In every walk of life, we overreact to something that happens right in the beginning. I love what Willie Green has done this year, and he's just going to need to figure out his rotations a little bit better and how to incorporate things. And I think tonight they take a step towards that. I think this line, if you look at it, it's one of those lines where it would jump out at your Raptors. And Zach, you and I both like when lines look weird. And to me, this screams Pelicans right here. This line should be probably 5.5 or something along those lines. Even though the Raptors haven't been great on the road. I just think the Pelicans have done a really good job the past couple months of being able to bounce back when they really needed to after a couple dings. And with this home stretch they have after being on the road and then winning 4 in a row and then coming home and losing 2 in a row, I just have a hunch that they're going to play really well tonight. They're going to start to figure things out. And I think this is a great spot for them.
They played in Toronto about a month ago, and Toronto won that game by 4. So if and obviously that's a different Pelicans roster, but it goes to show you they can be competitive, certainly. Good time to take a look at the NBA title odds from Caesars because we are post-trade deadline now. We're coming up on the All-Star break. First time all season, the Suns have been the favorite, and I've been kind of beating that drum for a month or so now that they're the best team in the NBA, and it's not particularly close. The Warriors started out like a house of fire, but has slowed down just a little bit. The Nets are a mess. I mean, we know they're talented.
Insane.
But
that line is insane.
You can't bet that. I mean, because you don't know who they're going to have. They don't have Harden. Kyrie can only play in half the games because he refuses to get vaccinated. Kevin Durant's hurt. I mean, I don't know what we're doing there. The 76ers have moved up with adding James Harden to 6-1. I still like the Bucks at 6-1 also. I think your champ is going to be Suns, Warriors, Bucks, or Sixers. I don't see one of these other teams going all the way. I like the Heat. I like the Jazz. I like the Grizzlies. I just don't see them as championship teams. Guys, any thoughts on value on this list?
There's no such thing as value in the NBA. I mean, I guess you could kind of call the Suns semi-value, but did that train sail already when you could have got it a couple
I
weeks
liked them.
ago?
I got them 6-1 a month ago, and I liked them a lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I agree with you, Zach, that they are the clear favorite. I mean, and especially the fact that they went to the championship series last year. So I think there's a great chance it's Bucks and Suns again. And there is no team playing like the Suns are playing right now. And even at 4.5-1, if there's such thing as value, it's them. But I'm not touching any of these things. I don't think you're getting enough value out of anything on this list.
In NBA history, has a team ever lost 11 in a row and still been less than 6-1 to win the title? Like
that's just
crazy.
Insane. And you know what? People probably are still betting it, or they wouldn't have it like that. So I mean, people think they're going to miraculously turn around. You know, Ben Simmons hasn't played all year. What he's going to suddenly lead the Nets to? You know, I know we love KD, but how old is he now? I mean, can he stay healthy through the next 2.5 months? I don't know.
Not to mention they may have to go through the play-in. One bad game and you're out. I mean, like, you know, it's
right. And so Kyrie can't Game 7. If they have Game 7 at home, and Kyrie can't play. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's. Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know. College basketball scene. LSU survives at home on Saturday, a game they really needed. They're able to hold off Mississippi State. They did not cover, but they do win. And Caesars had an odds boost them on the money line and over. I think it was 127.5, and they staggered to the finish line on both counts there. So it did pay off to bet that. The other one I'll point out here, Kentucky's obviously playing extremely well. They've become one of the national title favorites in my mind. Memphis, we know the talent Memphis has. They've been as dysfunctional as the Brooklyn Nets for most of the season, but they might be getting it together. They went to Houston, top 10 team, and not only beat them, but beat them pretty handedly on Saturday. Penny Hardaway cursed out a reporter or a columnist for the Memphis paper a few weeks ago. They haven't lost since then. So I don't know, like it's one of these things where you light a fire under somebody. But if you're looking for kind of a dark horse, either for the American Conference or, you know, maybe once you get to March Madness to make a Sweet 16 run or something, it's a talented team.
Yeah, they cost me a bet last week on Tulane. You know, but yeah,
let's not talk about that. That was the worst beat of the year, man. That was the worst beat of the decade so far.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Memphis is really talented. They play really well over the last month or so, and you need to start playing your best basketball at this time of the year. You know, February and heading into March is the big time, and you know, Memphis. I mean, you know, it's been a while since they made the Sweet 16, you know, Elite 8 run, but you know, they definitely look like a legitimate threat to make some noise in the tournament this year.
Old folks like me want to know when Little Penny's coming back.
Oh man,
do you remember Little Penny?
I've heard of it.
Go YouTube it.
I mean, I know who you're talking about, but I can't I can't say he's coming
God,
back
I'm
anytime
old.
soon. Yeah, you are. College basketball championship odds. These are always tough for me because you don't know how the tournament field's going to shake out. I mean, Gonzaga is pretty clearly the best team in the country. They took back over number 1 from Auburn this week. But what if they get thrown in the same region as Arizona or Purdue or Duke or somebody where you're like, man, it's going to be tough for them to even get to the Final Four. Like, without seeing the bracket, it's difficult to bet here. I do have a little bit of stake in Arizona. I think I got them at 16-1. They're down to 11-1. I do like them. I don't know, guys. You see anything here that interests you at this point?
I got Duke at 13-1 before the season. I'm telling you, Coach K, Hollywood script. Refs are going to be anything that's close.
Calls.
He's going to get tons of calls. The NCAA would love to see Duke win the national championship here. I still think they're a decent value at 12-1. When they're hot, they're certainly as good as any team on this list, including Gonzaga or Auburn. I do like Kentucky at 10-1, but I will say this: I still have this like sneaky suspicion that one of those Baylor or Kansas is going to make a run. And we saw what happened with Baylor last year when they got hot. Man, they couldn't be beat. Mighty Gonzaga couldn't derail them, although they spent so much time and energy beating UCLA. I think it took a lot of them out in the national championship game. But there's a little bit of value down there, and that's why college basketball is so much better than the NBA and so much more fun to watch.
I mean, listen, it's tough to – you talk about that Gonzaga-UCLA game taking energy out. I mean, again, you don't know. UCLA was an 11 seed last year. They weren't even supposed to be there. There is no way you could have predicted that's what would cost Gonzaga in a matchup with Baylor. Like, you just can't
Right.
You can't predict those things. I will say, you make a good point about Duke. I don't love their defense, but they're going to play that Coach K man-to-man. And if there is a little bit of refs, oh yeah, Coach K, we know you're playing solid defense. This is your last run, and you get away with just that 10% more. Maybe that's enough to win some close games in March. So you make a good point there. Other sports going on besides basketball, we mentioned golf. Here are your Genesis Invitational odds. Jim, you and I got a tip from Uncle Big Nick and hit Scotty Scheffler last week, 25-1.
Oh, don't swell his head anymore.
But he deserves it. He deserves it.
You know what he deserves? I'm not going to say that on the air.
All right. Well, we got an interesting comment on the Saints quarterback situation here too, which I'll get to in a minute. But this is another loaded field here in LA next week. Dustin Johnson, Colin Morikawa added to sort of the guys who were there last week. Rory McIlroy. Again, golf is one of those things where you got to take a couple of shots and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to be careful not to take too many shots. I kind of got to say, there he goes. He'll hush. You have to kind of, obviously in golf, you have to get a little lucky. And we got lucky with Scotty Scheffler because Cantlay couldn't make big putts when he absolutely needed to yesterday. And, it was almost like neither guy wanted to win in playoffs.
Schauffele missed an eagle putt by like an inch on 17 that would have put him in the playoff too. So. I'm
not going to get on Xander at all, but whatever. Willie Z. I like Willie Z at 25-1 thanks to Uncle Big Nick. That's one of the ones he likes this week, and I think it is a good spot for him. He has been right on the cusp there late last season, now I say early this season because this season started in October, but even some of the big ones last year, Willie Z was right on the cusp. I like him at 25-1, but again, don't bet too many of them. And I made that mistake last week and got bailed out with Scotty. I think I had like 10 outrights and realized after I'd done it. Now, luckily, Scotty Scheffler was my big one, and I only put like 5 or 10 on the other guys. I had Scotty Scheffler $40 at 25-1. Pretty happy with that one. But so that was what I would suggest. You take the one you like the most. Maybe you put a little bit extra on them, and then the other guys, you just put 5, 10, 15 somewhere in there. But limit it to 5.
Yeah, it becomes tough. And then Spencer, one of the reasons I wanted you on this show today too is because the Daytona 500 is coming up, and you are the NASCAR guy. And so NASCAR is similar to golf, not quite as many long shots out there because you don't have 130 guys in the field. You've only got 40. But when you look at the Daytona odds here, first of all, how do you go into a NASCAR race betting? Explain your philosophy. And second of all, who do you like in Daytona this weekend?
All right, yeah, it's tough for Daytona because it's a track that has what they call pack racing. You know, all the cars are real close together, so it makes it tough to know because there's a lot of guys that are unknowns that can win it. Like pretty much all these guys on the board have a chance to win it. So I mean, it's tough to say who the best values are. But in a deal like this, I tend to go with the more experienced drivers. So I'd say like Kyle Busch at 15-1 is a good value. Kevin Harvick at 18-1, good value. You know, they both won at this track before. Both are NASCAR champions. Also, Martin Truex Jr. at 20-1. They're just it's tough, but they're guys, and they're in good equipment too. You also got to look at what kind of cars they're driving. They all drive for some of the top teams in I mean, it's tough. Denny Hamlin is the guy that's won it the most out of anybody in the field, but I'd probably stay away from him because while he is good at this track, I just don't see the value there. I don't see where he's that much better here than a Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick. So I'd say stick with the more experienced drivers, but try to find some value. Don't necessarily go with the guy that's won the race multiple times because it's a race that's, in all honesty, kind of a crapshoot because all the cars are so close together there. It just kind of comes down to a lot of times who can stay out of trouble at the end.
Daytona is one of those races where, as sort of a casual auto racing fan, every couple of years somebody will win it. And you'll see the headline. You'll go, who? Who is that? It's like, because not one of the races where you want to pick the favorite, and that's similar to golf as well. The favorite is rarely the place where the value is.
I'll make a bet, Zach. I'll bet all three of you know more about auto racing than I know.
I know a little something NASCAR. I know
no doubt.
NASCAR.
There were some names on that
I'm
list.
second place on the list because I don't know a whole lot. All right. Well, Devin, what's your take then on Daytona here?
I think Denny Hamlin, the favorite going in because he's won the two of the last three Daytonas. But I think a dark horse to watch here at 15-1 is Brad Keselowski. He's got 7 super speedway wins in his career, and he's won at this track before too. So I think he provides some nice value on this board. When you look at everything here. But I would probably go Keselowski if you were going to put down a bet, as a long shot. But, can't count on guys like Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, both have won multiple races over the last few years. But I think Keselowski is the one to watch in this one.
That's it. I'm going to put $20 on Keselowski. I'm doing it. In fact, as soon as this show's over, I'm not kidding. Go and do it.
Well, wait a minute. Spencer, what was your top pick?
Nothing. I'm not trying to dog on Spencer. In fact, whatever his top pick is, I'm going to put $20 on that too.
Spencer, you say Kurt Busch was or
Kyle Busch?
Kyle Busch. Okay.
Yeah, the one thing with Keselowski, I mean, he's good on the super speedways, but he's switching teams this season. He's switching from Penske to Roush Racing, and the Roush the past few years hadn't been as strong as Penske, so that's the only reason why I'd be a little wary of Keselowski.
The left half of your screen knows NASCAR. The right half will be on golf. Yeah, we're gonna have to split this up. But anyway, the point is here on Bayou Bets, the rest of the year, football season is over. We're still here for you. We're going to talk some golf and NASCAR each and every weekend. We're going to talk basketball until that's over. Hopefully, we'll have some baseball to talk. I actually encourage people, go look up Joe Sheehan on Twitter. He's a longtime baseball writer, one of my favorites. He used to write for Sports Illustrated. And he writes a newsletter that you should subscribe to. But today he's got a free one calling for Major League Baseball to end the lockout because people don't really think about this in these simple of terms. But Major League Baseball could go in and say, we are lifting the lockout and therefore playing the 2022 season under the terms of the old CBA while still negotiating a new CBA. They can do that. And so now the question would be, if they did that, would the players say, no, then we're going to go on strike? I don't know if that's the case or not. But the owners could end it, continue to negotiate, and still give us baseball. It's not going to happen right now. Now, I mean, listen.
Here's the problem with that, Zach. Nobody cares. They don't. It's not like football. They don't care who's wrong or right. They're not going to take sides. This isn't a presidential election. This isn't NFL labor union. This isn't mask or no mask, vaccine or no vaccine. They don't care. It's baseball. If you don't play baseball, they're not going to care what the reason is. So they need to figure it out. And lifting, and if the players decide they don't want to play on it and the players go on strike, no one's going to, I mean, I'm not saying no one's going to care because we're going to care. We love baseball. But people who don't love baseball, they're just going to watch something else.
Yeah, and that's
they might watch something else anyway.
And that's baseball's problem. But I will say this: when if y'all were anything like me, when you had a big project due in school and it was due on, you had to, March the 1st. What day did you finish it? You finished it on February 28th, or the morning. Or the morning of March 1st. Like you know what I'm saying? And so spring training was supposed to start Wednesday. It's not going to start Wednesday, but the drop dead date for them to start spring training and still start the season on time is right around March 1st. And so if there is going to be a deal, it's going to happen like February 28th or March 1st. So stay tuned. We're still a couple of weeks away from that date. And so I think at that point, the negotiating will get a lot more serious. And it's frustrating to watch. But I do think that that's the case, and we'll see what happens.
When they come back, bet a lot of overs. The pitchers won't be ready.
Yeah, you may be right about that. That'll be a whole nother discussion. I hope like hell that we have some fantasy baseball shows in March, and we're talking fantasy World Series futures and all of that sort of stuff. So we'll see. But in the meantime, we do have golf, we do have NASCAR, and of course we've got basketball as well to fill our sports betting palettes with. Encourage you to get in on the action if you haven't already. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars. Get your $300 bonus. Bet 20, get 300. You can go to NOLA.com/Caesars, or you can just go to the Caesars app and put in the promo code NOLA300. Same thing. You'll get that $300 bonus. So encourage you to do that here on Bayou Bets. Let's see. I did want to get back to this. Tim, if you're still watching, Tim, I like Ian Book. If the Saints go with Ian Book, that's them choosing to not compete next year. I'll put it that way.
You forgot to put Uncle Big Nick's. He's got the best comment he's ever had on this show.
Oh.
I mean, that's literally the best. That is the best comment Uncle Big Nick has ever put on this show. Big Media League. Yeah, sure. I'll tell you. Big Media League. I've been in it for 20 years. I won it 6 times.
No big deal.
Last year.
No big deal. Well, hopefully there is a season to be had this year. All right, final thoughts on Bayou Bets on this Super Bowl Monday. Spencer.
All right, yeah, I'll just say, I'm going to miss football for sure, but glad to at least have NASCAR to watch, so it's cool that there's a lot of times there's like the lull, like there's a Sunday where there's nothing, but this year it just continued to where boom, it's a Super Bowl, then the next week's the Daytona 500, which a lot of NASCAR fans call the Super Bowl in NASCAR. So yeah, it's fun. I'm excited. Just ready for free agency, though. Really excited to see how all the quarterback stuff shakes out here. And then with the Saints uncertain quarterback situation, still need an offensive coordinator. That's another thing. That's a big elephant in the room. Still need to decide on who the play caller is going to be next year. So yeah, I'm excited to see how all this shakes out.
Devin Jackson, final thought on this Monday.
Yeah, football being gone, it's not great, but we got March Madness coming up. I'm probably more excited this year than any other year of March Madness because, I actually have been keeping up with college basketball over the last couple of weeks and not just being fully into football. So excited for that to get started up. All-Star Weekend, Daytona 500 this weekend as well. So a lot of things happening this week. So it should be a good week of sports action that, is going to lead to a really fun March Madness in a few weeks.
Jim Derry.
Got a promo Datitude. It's going to be a big week for Datitude. It's out of 2 different people. I'm not exactly sure. My guess is tomorrow, but it's episode number 56, which just so happens to be episode 56, the first show after Super Bowl 56. We're going to be reviewing the Super Bowl. It's going to be one of 2 people I need to make sure it's going to be. Who knows? I might move Uncle Big Nick to Tuesday so we talk about golf. But the big one is on Friday, episode number 57. Who would be better, Saints fans, to have for episode number 57 than number 57 himself? Ricky Jackson is going to be on the show on Friday, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I think Devin Jackson might make an appearance. I said if Spencer was right and the Bengals won, it would be Spencer the Guru on. But Devin Jackson was right. The Rams won, and so we're going to have Devin Jackson on. And it's going to be tough to follow Ricky Jackson, but I am excited about Data 2 this week before we take a little mini break. I am going to go on vacation for Mardi Gras, and then it's going to be fun because then you're going to be gone forever, Zach, and we're going to have fun without you. So it's going to be, after this week, it's going to be like 5 weeks just kind of mixing and matching.
You know, I'm actually pumped up. I'm going to Europe next month, my brother's wedding, but also going to get to go to an English Premier League game. I already got my tickets to Everton and Tottenham. And, you know, they only let you drink at halftime in those things because otherwise people get too crazy. You can go in at halftime and get like one drink. And that,
they should have done that in Scottsdale yesterday.
On Saturday too. Yeah. That was the but anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll report back and maybe even join you guys live at some point. It'll be like 11 o'clock at night over there, but we'll see what we can do. So that's our show, and we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you're coming back on Thursday for At the Book. Obviously, we will continue to talk all year long about all the sports, not just football. So we're glad you could join us. And till next time, Devin Jackson, Jim Derry, Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. This has been Bayou Bets.